Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to the Claverings, where just recently, feckless, useless Archie Clavering has been made the object, the pawn in a plan hatched at the big house in Clavering, to get him married to Julia Ongar, which will, everyone thinks, set him on his feet. And at his club, Captain Boodles instructs him as to the best way to do that. Julia Ongar has already been married. She's not a fresh filly that you need to woo. Instead, you need to let her feel the bit in her mouth. You need to let her know that you're there. That's Captain Boodle's advice. Let her know that you're there. Because she's just a weak-willed thing, and if she's presented with a strong will, she'll immediately hand over her money and her land. There's perhaps no one in this book less suited to this task than Archie Clavering, but he decides he will do it. Right away. Almost. So that brings us to this next chapter, chapter 18, which is called Captain Clavering Makes His First Attempt. If you are anticipating that attempt will not go well, give yourself a gold star. During breakfast on the following day, which means from the hour of 1 till 2, for the glasses of ice, gin, and water had been many, Archie Clavering was making up his mind that he would begin at once. At 2 in the afternoon. He would go to Bolton Street on that day and make an attempt to be admitted. If not admitted today, he would make another attempt tomorrow, and if still unsuccessful, he would write a letter. Not a letter containing an offer, which according to Archie's idea would not be letting her know that he was there in the manner sufficiently potential, but a letter in which he would explain that he had a very grave reason for wishing to see her, his near and dear connection, Lady Ongar. Soon after 2, he sallied out, and he also went to a hairdresser's. He was aware that in doing so he was hardly obeying his friend, that is, Captain Boodles, to the letter, as to the sort of operation which come rather under the heading of handling a filly with a light touch. But he thought that he could in this way at any rate do no harm, if he'd only remember the instructions that he had received when in the presence of a trained mare. It was nearly 3 when he found himself in Bolton Street, having calculated that Lady Ongar might more probably be found at home then than at a later hour. But when he came to the door, instead of knocking, he passed it by. He began to remember that he had not yet made up his mind by what means he would bring about that which she certainly should know why he was there. So he took a little turn up the street, away from Piccadilly, through a narrow passage that there is in those parts, and by some stables, down into Piccadilly, and again to Bolton Street, during which little tour he had made up his mind that it could hardly become his duty to teach her so great a lesson on the first occasion. She must undoubtedly be taught to know that he was there, but not so taught on this first visit. That lesson should quickly precede his offer, and although he had almost hoped in the interval between the 2 of his beakers of gin and water on the preceding evening that he might ride and race and win it all together during this very first morning visit he was about to make, in his cooler moments he had begun to reflect that that would hardly be practicable. The mare must get to a gallop before she would be in a condition to be brought out. And so Archie knocked at the door, intending merely to give the mare a gallop if he should find her in today. All this horse talk reminds you not only is Trollope mocking the rampant sexism of his day, but also let's remember when Archie is wandering around, he can't even bring himself to knock at the door. His nerve is not up to the task. He passes stables, and when you walked anywhere in London in the 1860s, you passed stables. Horses were everywhere. You had to ride them. You had to learn how to ride them. But anyway. He gave his name and was shown up at once into Lady Ongar's drawing room. Lady Ongar was not there, but she soon came down and entered the room with a smile on her face and an outstretched hand. Between the manservant who took the captain's name and the maidservant who carried it up to her mistress, but who did not see the gentleman before she did so, there had arisen some mistake, and Lady Ongar, as she came down from her chamber above, expected that she was to meet another man. Harry Clavering, she thought, had come to her at last. "I'll be down at once," Lady Ongar had said, dismissing the girl, and then standing for a moment before her mirror as she smoothed her hair, obliterated as far as might be possible the ugliness of her cap, and shook out the folds of her dress. The cap is a widow's cap. She's forced by societal convention to dress in widow's weeds. A countess, a widow, a woman of the world who had seen enough to make her composed under all circumstances, one would say, a trained mare, as Doodles had called her. She stood before her glass, doubting and trembling like a girl, when she heard that Harry Clavering was waiting for her below. We may surmise that she would have spared herself some of this trouble had she known the real name of her visitor. Then, as she came slowly down the stairs, she reflected how she would receive him. He had stayed away from her, and she would be cold to him, cold and formal as she had been on the railway platform. She knew well how to play that part. Yet it was his turn now to show some eagerness of friendship if there was ever to be anything more than friendship between them. But she changed all this as she put her hand upon the lock of the door. She would be honest to him, honest and true. She was in truth glad to see him, and he should know it. What cared she now for the common ways of women and the usual coyness of feminine coquetry? She told herself that, in language somewhat differing from that which Doodles had used, that her filly days were gone by, and that she was now a trained mare. All this passed through her mind as her hand was on the door, and then she opened it with a smiling face and a ready hand to find herself in the presence of Captain Archie Clavering. The captain was sharp-eyed enough to observe the change in her manner. The change, indeed, was visible enough, and was such that it at once knocked out of Archie's breast some portion of the courage which his friend's lessons had inspired him. The outstretched hand fell slowly to her side, and the smile gave place to a look of composed dignity, which made Archie at once feel that the fate which called upon him to woo a countess was itself hard. And she walked slowly into the room before she spoke to him, or he to her. "Captain Clavering," she said at last, and there was much more surprise than of welcome in the tone. "Yes, Julia, that is. I thought I might as well come and call, as I found we weren't to see you at Clavering when we were all there at Easter." When she had been living in her brother's house as one of the family, he had called her Julia, and as Hugh had done. The connection between them had been close, and it had been natural for him to do so. He had thought much of this since his present project had been initiated, and had strongly resolved not to lose the advantage of his former familiarity. He can call her by her name. Other men cannot. He had very nearly broken down at the onset, but, as the reader will have observed, had recovered himself. "Yes, you are very good," she said, and then, as he had been some time standing with his right hand presented to her, she just touched it with her own. "There's nothing I hate so much as stuff and nonsense," said Archie. To this remark she simply bowed, remaining awfully quiet. Captain Clavering felt that her silence was in truth awful. She had always been good at talking, and he had paused for her to say something, but when she bowed to him in that stiff manner, "Deuced stiff she was, deuced stiff and impudent too," he told Doodles afterwards, that he knew he must go on himself. "Stuff and nonsense is such mischief, you know." Then he bowed again. "There's been something the matter with them all down at Clavering since you came home, Julia, but hang me if I can find out what it is." Still she was silent. "It ain't Hermy, that I must say." That's her sister, Hermione. "Hermy always speaks of you as though there had never been anything wrong." This assurance, we may say, must have been flattering to the lady whom he was about to court. "Hermy was always good to me, too good to me," said Lady Ongar, smiling. "By George, she always does. If there's anything wrong, it's been with Hugh, and by George, I don't know what it is he's up to when at first you came home. It wasn't my doing, of course you know that. So why is he taking this approach? Why is he starting with what's wrong, with something wrong? Is it maybe just practicality? He knows he has to. He knows she's not down at Clavering. He can't do this there. He knows that no one has come to visit her, except once from her sister, but certainly Sir Hugh hasn't come. Maybe that's why. Or maybe he's make himself look like the merciful exception. I never thought that anything was your doing, Captain Clavering. I think Hugh had been losing money. I do indeed. He was like a bear with a sore head just at that time. There was no living in the house with him. I dare say Hermy may have told you all about that." "Hermione is not by nature so communicative as you are, Captain Clavering." "Isn't she? I should have thought between sisters, but of course that's no business of mine." Again she was silent, awfully silent, and he became aware that he must either get up and go away or carry on the conversation himself. To do either seemed to be equally difficult. For a while he sat there almost gasping in his misery. He was quite aware that as yet he had not made her know that he was there. He was not there, as he well knew, in his friend Doodle's sense of the word. "At any rate, there isn't any good in quarreling, is there, Julia?" he said at last. Now that he had asked a question, surely she must speak. There is great good sometimes, I think, said she, in people remaining apart and not seeing each other. Sir Hugh Clavering has not quarrelled with me, and that I am aware. Indeed, since my marriage there have been no means of quarrelling between us. But I think it quite well that he and I should not come together. But he particularly wants you to go to Clavering. Has he sent you here as his messenger? Sent me? Oh dear no, nothing of that sort. I have come altogether on my own hook. If Hugh wants a messenger, he must find someone else. But you and I were always friends, you know. At this assertion she opened her large eyes widely, and simply smiled. And I thought that perhaps you might be glad to see me if I called. That was all. You are very good, Captain Clavering. I couldn't bear to think that you should be here in London, and that one shouldn't see anything of you or know anything about you. Tell me now, is there anything I can do for you? Do you want anybody to settle anything for you in the city? I think not, Captain Clavering, thank you very much. Because I should be so happy, I should indeed. There's nothing I should like so much as to make myself useful in some way. Isn't there anything now? There must be so much to be looked after, about money and all that. My lawyer does all that, Captain Clavering. Those fellows are such harpies. There is no end to their charges, and all for doing things that would be only a pleasure for me. I'm afraid I can't employ you in any manner that would suit your taste. Can't you indeed now? Then again there was silence, and Captain Clavering was beginning to think that he must go. He was willing to work hard at talking or anything else, but he could not work with no ground for starting that were allowed to him. He thought he must go, though he was aware that he had not made even the slightest preparation for future obedience to his friend's precepts. He began to feel that he had commenced wrongly. If he should have made her know that he was there from the first moment of his entrance into the room, he must retreat now in order that he must advance with more force on the next occasion. He had just made up his mind to this, and was doubting how he might best get himself out of his chair with the purpose of going, when sudden relief came in the shape of another visitor. The door was thrown open, and Madame Gordeloup was announced. "Well, my angel," said the little woman, running up to her friend and kissing her on either side of her face. Then she turned round as though she had only just seen the strange gentleman, and curtsied to him. Captain Clavering, holding his hat in both his hands, bowed to the little woman. "My sister's brother-in-law, Captain Clavering," Lady Ongar said, "Madame Gordeloup." Captain Clavering bowed again. "Ah, Sir Oo's brother," said Madame Gordeloup. "I am very glad to see Captain Clavering. Is your sister come?" "No, my sister is not come." "Lady Clavering is not in town this spring," said the captain. "Ah, not in town. Then I do pity her. There is only one place to live in, and that is London for April, May, and June. After that it gets a little hot." "Lady Clavering is not coming to London?" "Her little boy isn't quite the thing," said the captain. "Not quite de ting?" said the Franco-Pole with an inquiring voice, not exactly understanding the gentleman's language. "My little nephew is ill, and my sister does not think it wise to bring him to London," said Julia. "Ah, that is a pity. And is Sir Oo in London?" "Yes," said the captain. "My brother has been up for some time." "And his lady left alone in the country, poor lady. But your English ladies like the country. They're fond of the fields and the daisies. So they say, but I think they often lie. Me, I like the houses and the people and the pavé. The fields are damp, and I love not rheumatism at all." Then the little woman shrugged her shoulders and shook herself. "Tell us the truth, Julie. Which do you like best, the town or the country?" "Whichever I'm not in, I think." "Ah, just so. Whichever you are not in at present. That is because you are still idle. You have not settled yourself." At this reference to the possibility of Lady Ongar settling herself, Captain Clavering pricked up his ears and listened eagerly for what might come next. He only knew of one way in which a young woman without a husband could settle herself. You must wait, my dear, a little longer, just a little longer, till the time of your trouble has passed by." "Don't talk such nonsense, Sophie," said the Countess. "Ah, my dear, it is no nonsense. I am always telling her, Captain Clavering, that she must go through this black, troublesome time as quick as she can, and then nobody will enjoy the town so much as the rich and beautiful Lady Ongar. Is that not so, Captain Clavering?" Archie thought that the time had now come for him to say something pretty, so that his love might begin to know that he was there. "By George, yes, there'll be nobody so much admired as when she comes out again. There never was anybody so much admired before, that is, when you were Julie Brabazon, you know. And I shouldn't wonder if you don't come out quite as strong as ever." Ah, strong, said the Franco-Pole. A woman has been married is always more admired than a meese. Sophie, might I ask you and Captain Clavering to be a little less personal? What you ought to do is ask them both to leave. You ought to ask them both to leave and not come back. There's nothing, Sophie Gordeloup just ignores her. There's nothing I hate so much as your Mises, continued Sophie Gordeloup. Nothing. Your English Mises give themselves such airs. Now in Paris, or in dear Vienna, or in St. Petersburg, they are not like that at all. They are nobodies. They are nobodies. But then they will be something very soon, which is the better. Your English Mises is so much and so grand. They never can be greater and grander. So when she is a mamma, and she lives down in the country by herself, and looked after the pills and the powders, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. No, if my husband had put me into the country to look after the pills and the powders, he should have had all of them, all, himself, when he came to see me. As she said this with great energy, she opened her eyes wide and looked full into Archie's face. Of course, he has no idea what to do with this creature. Captain Clavering, who was sitting with his hat in his two hands between his knees, stared at the little foreigner. He had heard before of women poisoning their husbands, but never heard a woman advocate its systems as expedient. Nor had he often heard a woman advocate any system with the vehemence with Madame Gordeloup now displayed on this matter, and with an allusion which was so very pointed as to the special position of his own sister-in-law. Did Lady Ongar agree with her? He felt as though he should like to know what his Julia's opinions on the matter. Well, yes, if you're going to make her your wife, you definitely want to know her opinions on poisoning husbands. Sophie, Captain Clavering will think that you are in earnest, said the Countess, laughing. So I am in earnest. It is all wrong. You boil all the water out of the pot before you begin to put the gigot in it. So the gigot is no good. It's tough and dry, and you shut it up in an old house in the country. Then, to make matters pretty, you talk about the fields and the daisies. I know. Thank you, I should say. The fields and the daisies are so nice and so good. Suppose you go down, my love, and walk into fields and pick the daisies and send them to me by the railway. Yes, that is what I would say. Captain Clavering was now quite in the dark, and began to regard the little woman as a lunatic. When she spoke of the pot and the gigot, he vainly endeavored to follow her, and now that she got among the daisies, he was more at a loss than ever. Fruit, vegetables, and cut flowers came up, he knew, to London regularly from Clavering when the family was in town, but no daisies. In France it must be, he supposed, different. He was aware, however, of his ignorance, and said nothing. No one ever tried to shut you up, Sophie. No, indeed. Mr. Gordeloup knew better. What would he do if I were shut up? No one will ever shut you up, my dear. If I were you, I would give no one a chance. Don't say that, said the captain, almost passionately. Don't say that. Ha! I do say it. Why should a woman who has got everything marry again? If she wants the fields and the daisies, she has got them of her own. Yes, of her own. If she wants the town, she has got that too. Jewels, she can go and buy them. Coaches, there they are. Parties, 1, 2, 3, every night as many as she please. Gentlemen who will be her humble slaves. Such a plenty, all London. Or if she want to be alone, no one can come near her. Why should she marry? No. But she might be in love with somebody, said the captain, in a surprised but humble tone. Love? Bah! Be in love so that she may shut up in an old barrack into powders? The way in which the word barrack was pronounced, with the middle letters sounded, almost lifted the captain off his seat. Love is very pretty at 17, when the imagination is telling a parcel of lives, and when life is one dream. To like people, oh yes, to be fond of your friends, oh yes, to be much attached, as I am to my Julie. Here she got hold of Lady Ongar's hand. It is the salt of life, but what you call love, booing and cooing with rhymes and verses about the moon, it is to go back to pap and panade, and what you call bibs. If a woman wants a house and does something to live on, let her marry a husband, and if a man want to have children, let him marry a wife. But to be shut up in a country house when everything you have got of your own, I say it is bad. Captain Clavering was heartily sorry that he had mentioned the fact that his sister-in-law being left at home in Clavering Park. It was most unfortunate. How could he make it understood that if he were married he would not think of shutting his wife up at Ongar Park? Lady Clavering, you know, does come to London generally, he said. Bah! Exclaimed the little Franco-Pole. As for me, I should never be happy if I were married unless I had my wife with me everywhere, said Captain Clavering. Bah! Ejaculated the lady. Captain Clavering could not endure this any longer. He felt that the manner of the lady was, to say the least of it, unpleasant, and he perceived that he was doing no good to his own cause. So he rose from his chair and muttered some words with the intention of showing his purpose of departure. Goodbye, Captain Clavering, said Lady Ongar. My love to my sister when you see her. Archie shook hands with her and made his bow to Madame Gordeloup. Au revoir, my friend, she said, and you will remember all I say. It is not good for the wife to be all alone in the country while the husband walk about in the town and make an eye to every lady he see. Archie would not trust himself to renew the argument, but bowing again, made his way off. How utterly repulsive this woman is. He was come for an admirer, said Sophie, as soon as the door was closed. An admirer of whom? Not of me. Oh, no, I was in no danger at all. Of me? Captain Clavering? Sophie, you get your head full of the strangest nonsense. Ah, very well, you see. What will you give me if I am right? Will you bet? Why had he got his new gloves on and had his head all smelling with the stuff of the hairdresser? Does he come away perfumed? Does he always come perfumed like that? Does he wear shiny little boots to walk about in the morning or make an eye always? Perhaps yes. I never saw his boots or his eyes, but I see them. I see many things. He come to have Ongar Park for his own. I tell you, yes, 10,000 will come to have Ongar Park. Why not? To have Ongar Park and all the money a man will make himself smell a great deal. You think much more about all that than is necessary. Do I, my dear? Very well. There are 3 already. There is Edward, and there is this Clavering who you say is a captain, and there is the other Clavering who goes with his nose in the air and who think himself very clever because he learned his lesson at school and did not get himself whipped. He will be whipped some day, perhaps. Sophie, hold your tongue. Captain Clavering is my sister's brother-in-law, and Harry Clavering is my friend. Ah, friend, I know what sort of friend he wants to be. How much better to have a park and plenty of money than to work in a ditch and make a railway. But you do not know the way with a woman. Perhaps he may be more at home, as you say, in a ditch. I should say to him, my friend, you will do well in the ditch if you work hard. Suppose you stay there. You don't seem to like my cousin, and if you please, we will talk no more about him. Why should I not like him? He don't want to get any money from me. That will do, Sophie. Very well, it shall do for me, but this other man has come here today. He is a fool. Very likely. He did not learn his lesson without whipping. Nor with whipping, either, I imagine, said Lady Ongar. No, he have learned nothing. He does not know what to do with his hat. He is a fool. Come, Julie, will you take me out for a drive? It is melancholy for you to go alone. I come to ask you for a drive. Shall we go? The answer is no, not now and not ever. But instead, Lady Ongar, and they did go, Lady Ongar and Sophie Gordeloup together. Lady Ongar, as she submitted, despised herself for her submission. But what was she to do? It is sometimes very difficult to escape the meshes of friendship. You aren't friends. You don't like her. She doesn't like you. She's a paid Russian spy. Simply forbid her your door. It's the easiest thing in the world. But this book is a gigantic aria of attention to weak people. Captain Clavering, when he left Bolton Street, went down to his club, having first got rid of his shining boots and his new gloves. He sauntered up to the billiard room, knowing that his friend would be there, and there he found Doodles with his coat off and his sleeves turned back and armed with his cue. His brother Captain, the moment he saw him, presented the cue at his breast. "Does she know you're there, old fellow? I say, does she know you're there?" The room was full of men, and the whole thing was done so publicly that Captain Clavering was almost offended. "Come, Doodles, you go on with your game," said he. It is you to play." Doodles turned to the table and scientifically pocketed the ball in which he played. Then he laid his own ball close to the cushion, picked up a shilling and put it in his waistcoat pocket, holding a lighted cigar in his mouth the while, and then he came back to his friend. "Well, Clavy, how's it been?" "Oh, nothing as yet, you know." "Haven't you seen her?" "Yes, I have seen her, of course. I'm not a fellow who let the grass grow under my feet. Just sleep until 2. I've only just come from her house." "Well? Well?" "There's nothing much to tell the first day, you know." "Did you let her know that you were there? That's the chat. Demi, did you let her know that you were there?" In answer to this, Archie attempted to explain that he was not yet quite sure that he had been successful in that particular. But in the middle of his story, Captain Doodles was called off to exercise his skill again, and on this occasion to pick up 2 shillings. "I'm sorry for you, Griggs," he said, as a young lieutenant, whose life had been taken, put up his cue with a look of ineffable disgust, and whose shilling Doodles had pocketed. "I'm sorry for you, very, but a fellow must play the game, you know." Whereupon Griggs walked out of the room with a gait that seemed to show that he had his own ideas upon the matter, though he did not choose to divulge them. Doodles instantly returned to his friend. "With cattle of that kind, it ain't no use trying the waiting dodge," he said. "You should make your running at once and trust to bottom to carry you through." "But there was this horrid little French woman come in." "What, a servant?" "No, a friend. Such a creature. You should have heard her talk. A kind of confidential friend she seemed, who called her Julie. I had to go away and leave her there, of course." "Ah, you'll have to tip that woman." "What, with money?" "Well, I shouldn't wonder." It would come very expensive." "A tenner now and then, you know. She would do your business for you. Give her a brooch first, and then offer to lend her the money. You'll find she'll rise fast enough if you have a hand at throwing a fly." "Oh, I could do it, you know." "Do it, then, and let 'em both know that you're there." "Yes, Parkins, I'll divide, and Clavey, you can come in now in Griggs's place." Then Captain Clavering stripped himself in for battle. He's gone on to billiards, but Doodles has given him another idea. He was the first interview with Julia was utterly baffling, mainly because of Sophie Gordeloup, this weird little woman. But Doodles has given him a simple idea: buy her off, bribe her, pay for an ally in Julia's house. So we'll see what comes of that sage advice as we continue next time. Thank you, BookTube.